Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. What's happening?
Oh, just bright and early for you. How's it going?
I know it's still kind of like dark and early.
Hey guys. Hey, what's up? Long time no talk. What was it, like a year ago or something?
Right?
Oh my gosh, I think more. Maybe.
Yeah, like almost 2 years.
Nice. My microphone settings keep changing. Hold on.
You look even more beautiful than last time.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I just checked out a couple of your episodes and stuff. Awesome, guys. Congratulations on your YouTube channel and everything.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
you.
Which ones did you check out?
I was just watching a little bit of the sex baby.
Hey, that was a good
yesterday's episode.
one. You
Yeah.
would totally appreciate how raw that one was.
Yeah, man. That's how to go, man. Just get real with people. That's what they want.
They
Yeah.
appreciate it, yeah, for sure.
And that's what you do. So today is going to be fire.
Are we live right now or?
So the recording has started, and by the way, we will have a post later with like a glimpse of it, and of course everything is going to be on YouTube as well.
Cool.
The link was posted on our community page, so in a couple of minutes people from the community will start joining in,
Like
and-
real live.
yeah, real live. And that's why we do it at 6 a.m. because our show is at this time and it's consistent and they're used to it. So we're like, okay. I mean, a lot of the speakers are in the East Coast, but for the West Coasters, it's like, you sure you're gonna do it at 6 a.m.? Like, yes.
Well, it's one thing to like get up at 6 a.m., but it's another when because I had to get up before, you got to like have your morning, you got to do your thing, which
Yeah.
I totally don't mind. Like these days we got a heat wave. There's nothing happening. No one's going, we're pandemic. Like, I'm totally fine with that. I'll probably just take a nap later. So.
Great.
Yeah. How hot is it by you guys?
Dude, it was 109 the other day. Fuck off. And
Off.
and then it cooled down to 93 at like 10 o'clock at night. So there's that. So the beach is like 82, but I live a little bit up the mountain. And so yesterday it was like 103. It's one of those things where a lot of our houses and stuff, like at least the one I'm in, I have like a portable air conditioning unit. Like a lot of places weren't. Honestly, we are feeling the effects of climate change here in California over the years. There never was these fires. There never was this kind of heat. So a lot of people have had to get AC units, but because places aren't that well ventilated, you could run the AC all day and it still doesn't really cool it down, So I'm just like 4 cold showers a day. I'm trying to do my best.
You're just sticky constantly.
Well, it's not, there's no humidity here. So it's a super dry heat, but yeah, it is like I wake up and like the fact that I'm wearing a shirt right now, I can't wait to just get it. I've been wearing a bikini at home every day, just like walking around. I wake up, I put on my bikini, which I don't often do. So yeah, we're having a rough one. And I've just, Northern California is hating it with a lot of fire. So it's always a bummer when, your state is burning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you live up the mountains by Malibu, right?
Yeah, I live in the mountains right above Malibu, or the Malibu Mountains. There's the Santa Monica Mountain Range, which burned down completely like 2 years ago. So we're a little safer here because the brush is low. There's not a lot of fuel like there is other places, like Northern California. But I tell you what, after all this, I'm like, gosh, I should maybe move back to the beach.
Yeah.
It's been, I mean, we live like 2 miles from the beach, and it's like, yesterday was like 85 to 90, 87.
Are you guys in Florida?
No, we're
in Carlsbad.
You're where?
Carlsbad, like right above San Diego.
Oh, I thought so. Okay, so all right. I thought for some reason it was 9 o'clock your time, and you were on the East Coast, because that seemed like 9 o'clock in the morning seems like a great time to do it.
No, we're up just as early as you, babe.
As you can see, like things are pretty like dark in here still. But some of y'all who just jumped in, good morning, everybody. Where's everybody from? So let's show where we representing. By the way, you guys, if you can do me a favor and please mute yourself, that would be lovely.
Last time you got to chat with me. This time you get to chat with Sarit, and I'm going to be over here on the side, so don't talk too much shit about me, all right? Because I can hear you.
Nice. Good. Thanks for the warning, because
Yeah.
I might have.
It's great to see you.
Me too.
So we got Ohio in the house, Chi-Town. That's where you're from, Al, right?
I'm from downtown Chi-Town. What's up, Chi-Town? Yeah.
Oh, wait, and hi to everybody else too. That was really rude of me. Gosh.
So Al, before we get this party started,
Yeah.
this is an espresso show. So I mean, I must ask you the question: Do you drink coffee? Are you like an avid coffee lover, or?
I totally am. I've had a couple cups already this morning, and now I don't know where mine is, but I have my water nearby me. But yeah, I love coffee. Love it.
Awesome. What kind of coffee do you like?
You know, I've found that over time, I tend to go for like Peruvian beans.
Okay.
Peru. I don't know. It just seems like that seems to be the one.
Bold.
Yeah, it's good. I like Stumptown coffee. I like Cayenne coffee. Yeah. You know that you can mute everyone too, right?
Yes, I'm going to in just a second. You guys, who is an avid coffee lover in the house? Drop it in the chat box. Elle, are we ready to get this party started?
Let's start it.
Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna get set up.
Are you ready to get this party started?
I am about to get ready. That's why I always ask for it.
It's the first 6 a.m. party I've ever been to.
Really? I know. We always get, wow, early bird really gets the worm. We're like, yep, exactly right. Okay. Mute. Wait, Al. Okay.
I just unmuted me. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we are good to go, team. 1 sec. All right, you guys. Good morning, and happy Friday. Today I have with me best-selling author, TV and film writer, and renowned life coach, Miss Elle Russ. Her first book, The Paleothyroid Solution, has helped thousands of people around the world reclaim their health. Recently, though, Elle released her new book called Confident as Fuck, which I truly believe is going to help thousands more people regain control of this time, their confidence. As if that is not enough already, Elle is also the host of the Primal Blueprint podcast, which some of you guys may have already not just heard of, but perhaps listened to. So Elle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with everyone.
I mean, you know what? So you guys, this is actually our second conversation with Elle, and the first one was bomb.com, and we're like, we got to bring her again, because we know that today is going to add so much value and a different twist. Because you know what, Elle, I want to touch base a little bit with regards to both your books, because I believe that it's a part of your journey, and also, I mean, man, they both add so much value in such a different way. But you know, considering everything that you do, right? I mean, you wrote 2 books, you're a coach. It's very clear that you're just really passionate about helping others. So, you know, normally my first question relates to, you know, where you came from. So was there a defining moment in your life that brought that passion to your life? Can you recall it? And if so, what was it?
Well, I've had lots of passions, some of which I still pursue. Maybe some along the way I gave up as a teenager or whatever. And there's been several moments. So for my first book, it really was, I was compelled to write it because I had to be my own doctor to fix my own situation, because all these dummy doctors out there were 99% uninformed, using outdated protocols for thyroid health. And I suffered for many years. So I had to really step up, take my own health into my own hands, which I shouldn't have had to do in a city like Los Angeles with millions of, you know, some of the best doctors in the world. And so I think, you know, and like a lot of people who initially go into the health arena, that's the same thing. As far as confidence goes, and I talk about this in my book, I was really confident a Zeph all the way around, but there was a lingering situation that I've had two really defining moments in my life. One was I got disabled at the age of 22. I'm actually permanently disabled. I have a hand disability and no one can see it. And when you have something you can't see, you don't tell people because you don't want people to judge you and you have shame about it. So that was the first thing that happened to me at the age of 22. Then I went on going, okay, well, now I can't use my hands. I'm going to have to pursue a career in voice and acting. And like, where do I start? So I went on that train and ended up, doing voices. I've been in TV and film as an actor and still am. And then also, using my voice to write now that technology is up to par. So that was my first sort of defining moment in my life. And I didn't know where it was going to take me. It turned out to be such an incredibly inspiring story where I never thought it would be. I thought I was totally screwed when it happened to me. No one wants to get permanently disabled at the age of 22 when your whole life is ahead of you. And now all of a sudden you're like, because we live in a hand-based world. Not anybody can think of one job out there. I challenge you to think of any job where you don't have to use your hands repetitively 8 hours a day. It doesn't matter if you're a Starbucks barista, you're a waiter, you work at so someone in a wheelchair has actually way more job opportunities than I do. I'm not crying a river about it. I'm just saying, you don't just go to NBC and be like, hey, I need to use my voice. Will you give me a job? So, then I was compelled to go on that track. And while I was on that track, I ended up pursuing acting. And part of that was, oh gosh, now I've got to be in shape because I'm this young ingenue type. And so now I've got to, have this body that's Hollywood body. And in my pursuit of fitness and all of that, I was on the old paradigm and ended up, screwing myself up. And we don't know exactly what caused it, but got severe hypothyroidism. And then that's the second really eventful part of my life where then I had to take charge. I didn't write the confidence book until later, so that's my second book, but it's a culmination because people have been coming to me my whole entire life to be like, how do I speak up to this bully? What do I say to my mother-in-law? How do I go get that raise, or my boss is a jerk? Like, how do I? And so I noticed like everybody was always coming to me for that stuff. And people would say, God, I wish I had your confidence. You know what I mean? And now that kind of sounds a little cocky because it sounds like, oh, I'm on this pedestal and I'm dispensing advice to everybody about how they can improve their life. But I learned a lot from the people that lacked confidence because they have some other qualities that highly confident people don't have that we need to be alerted to. So two major struggles, I would say, in my life, like they say, your test becomes your testimony or whatever, but it's true. And so that happened to me.
Your test becomes your testimony. So something that we always use is, your mess becomes your message, but your test becomes your testimony. You guys, you already know that, these conversations, like you better bring your notebook and take some notes because like Elle is going to be dropping like golden nuggets, like it's raining from the sky, even though like there is no like one piece of cloud over here in California, but it's really powerful that, you've been through some shit, right? And it's really easy to just retreat. However, you used your adversity to your advantage. And you guys, like we had a lot of, powerful speakers on the show, but, if you listen to Elle and how she speaks and how eloquent, her speech is, it's like, you're like, okay, well, obviously I have a disability with my arm. It's completely outside of my control. So what can I do instead in order to, climb up the ladder of life? And it's really beautiful how, like you said, you used your test to become your testimony. So I want to touch up on thyroid health a little bit, and then we'll talk about, the more mental stuff. But, you are an expert when it comes to thyroid health. And
let me jump in and say, I freaking shouldn't be, okay? I shouldn't have had to become an expert. Like, why did I live in a city of Los Angeles and go to over 24 endocrinologists and nobody knew what the fuck they were talking about? Like, why? That shouldn't have had to happen. But that is the truth. Hypothyroidism has 200 million plus people in the world have it. 23 to 5 or more million Americans have it. Just one of the thyroid hormones is the #1 prescription in the US. I, with a philosophy degree, should not have had to become my own doctor and buy my thyroid hormones and dose myself. That shouldn't have had to happen. And if it happened to me, oh, it's happening everywhere. And it's one of the biggest problems with thyroid stuff is that it's mismanaged. Doctors are uninformed, and then the patients are uninformed too. And they're just putting their health in the hands of a doctor. So that's really the lesson I learned that I will never do again. And I'm glad I learned it, because now I can spread that advice to other people to save them the time and suffering that I had to go through by myself. And that was a very scary, lonely world when the entire medical community in Los Angeles is like, I can't help you. I mean, you know, that's just kind of insane to me. I even had, might have said this before in another interview, but I had, I laugh now, but I had one doctor who threw her hands up and goes, oh, Elle, this is too complicated.
Really?
And I talk about this in my book. And I said to her, I go, oh, really? So fucking medical school wasn't complicated? Like organic chemistry tests on the MCAT weren't like, this is complicated? Like, you shouldn't even be a doctor talking to me like that. And didn't offer me any help, any recommendations, anything. Okay. So this is where you're left in the dust. You have a lot of doctors who have high ego. They think they know what they're talking about. You see that they have a Harvard degree. They must know, but they don't. And instead of helping you, they hurt you. And so that's, again, my book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, is all about that. And for people watching and listening, if you have a thyroid problem, or if you're on thyroid hormone and you still have any symptom, and your doctor's like, well, it's not your thyroid. Guess what? You need to look into my work. You need to Google my interviews. And I do have a free thyroid guide on my website, lruss.com. Tells you every test to get, Happened the other day, I'm on a hike with a friend, and they brought a friend. And they're like, oh yeah, I've had Hashimoto's for years. I got diagnosed 30 years ago. I'm on Synthroid, And I go, okay, yeah. So I would like to make you, I'm willing to make you a bet right now. Bet you $1 million that your doctor didn't test, these things. And she's like, no, they did. I'm like, really? Oh, I'd be very shocked. Why don't you go back and look at your tests and tell me? She goes back. Of course I was right. I would have won $1 million. I knew that the doctor did not test all the proper tests. They were testing things from 1973 that are outdated. They don't know what they're talking about. They've been totally hurting this patient by not taking the right test and assessing her thyroid. Meanwhile, she's getting bigger and bigger around the middle. She's got weight she hasn't been able to lose. There's other issues going on. And just swimming in the sea for years, But again, everybody listening to this has to realize you got to own this, man. You got to take this shit into your own hands too, and not just go, save me. You have to learn about a thing. If you get diagnosed with something, you better become your own expert, or you're going to lose this game. You're going to lose the fight. It's the people that persevere, learn it, and move forward that win. That's what leads to success in that arena. So, and that does take a certain level of confidence. Granted, it's hard to have confidence when your brain's screwed up and your neurotransmitters aren't right, and you don't have enough serotonin, and your adrenals are screwed, and all of the 30, 40 million, whatever symptoms you could have with hypothyroidism. Yes, it's tough. You're an emotional wreck. You're a piece of garbage. It totally is a tough situation to like muster up this confidence. It's like almost like you can't access happy feelings, but that's okay. You still need to forge ahead. You still need to move in that direction. No one cares more about you than you. Period. End of story. No one's going to do this for you. No one did it for me. I live in Los Angeles, you guys. I went to like celebrities who wrote books on hormones, went to their famous doctors, paid $700 a visit. That nobody knew what they were talking about. Nobody. And so why did I have to go find that out? Listen, I'm glad I did, but it kind of is like a dark comedy, because you're like, all these people went to medical school for 10 years. They have these degrees from, the most, incredible universities. And here I am with like a philosophy degree from UC Santa Cruz. And I'm like, no, I think you're wrong. You know what I mean? But that's the truth. So perseverance pays.
100%. So, okay, you have vast knowledge with regards to the thyroid. And, this morning I love John Maxwell, and, I was reading a part of one of his books, and he said that, 90% of the things that you're going to learn in life are through experience. And, for one, with great gratitude to, the medical system, because they have moved us forward a lot. There are still a lot of gaps, and it goes back to the fact that, in order for you to really like have knowledge, right, with regards to something, like you have to experience it. So they know the theories, but unless they've experienced it by themselves, like they just don't know what to do about it. And it's just like, go ahead.
I was going to say, and that is why all of the best-selling thyroid books are written by patients, not doctors. And let me just throw out the only other 2 thyroid books I do recommend, because I have read all of them over all the years. There are only 2 other authors that I would ever listen to what they had to say. One is Janie Bowthorpe. She wrote a book called Stop the Thyroid Madness. She also has a website called Stop the Thyroid Madness. And frankly, it is the best website for thyroid health. Okay. Just hands down. I wouldn't even attempt to recreate it because it's that good. She's a fellow author who suffered for many years. And then she had a Yahoo group forum before she wrote the book, before she had the website, like back in 2006. And I was desperate for answers. And there weren't podcasts back then, by the way, yet, none of that stuff had happened. And so I'm doing all this search. I find this Yahoo group of these wonderful human beings that are fellow patients like me, but they fixed it and they've gone through all the BS and they're there for free helping people and guiding patients. And what they did is when I found them, they finally told me these are the tests, and they put me on the right train so that I could go investigate and figure this out myself. And they helped me help myself. I'll be indebted to them forever. By the way, the group is still there, but it's now on Stop the Thyroid Madness. You have to take everything at face value, but there are moderators on there, as very knowledgeable like me, who are helping people assess their labs, helping them find doctors. They have a good doctor list that thyroid patients have compiled over 17 years in different states. And it is in my free thyroid guide too, the link for that as well. So Janie Bowthorpe, great book, great person. She also coaches and she's a lifesaver. The second person is a guy out of England named Paul Robinson, and he wrote a book called Recovering with T3. Now, this book is only for people that have to go to the last resort choice of thyroid hormone replacement, which is T3 only, and that is me. And Janie Bowthorpe at the time, when I called her and I was like, I think I've got a second problem here. I think I'm hypothyroid again, what's happening? She was the one that said, I think you actually have a reverse T3 problem. And then I had to go down the train of figuring out what that was and looking into it. And she recommended, at the time it had just come out, was Paul Robinson's book. I've interviewed both of them on the Primal Blueprint podcast. Yeah. You can always Google my name and theirs, and the episode will come up. But those two books are very valuable, and Janie's website is very valuable. The rest of the thyroid books, in my opinion, are useless. I hate to say it, but they are. I'm not trying to be better than others, that's the truth. So those are the only two thyroid authors that I trust. And, that's what's so interesting is that's, and back to what you said, that's why the best-selling thyroid books are written by patients, because we know how it feels. Look, I've been hyperthyroid. I've been on too much. I've been on too little. I've had a reverse T3 problem. I've had regular hypothyroidism. I've experimented where I've been on too low of medication and too high. I've been through it all. So you really have to be living it to understand it. And I think that's why the functional doctors that are out there that know what's up, like the doctor on my book, Dr. Gary Forsman, is that he listens to patients. So he's really listening and seeing what the trends are over the years. He gets it. He may not know it himself, perhaps, but he's a deep enough of a listener and pays attention enough to assess that his patients know what they're talking about and they're not having phantom symptoms. You know what I mean?
Sure. So real quick, for anybody who's just jumping in or who's listening, we've talked quite a bit about, thyroid and what's going on. Let's talk about what is the thyroid gland and what role does it play with regards to our body composition?
Oh, everything. So the thyroid gland, first of all, for people that don't know, it's a butterfly-shaped gland. It's below an Adam's apple if you're a guy, but it's right here in your neck, at the base of your neck. And essentially, the reason it's called the master gland, that's not me putting that label on it. That's just physiology. It is the master gland. It is in charge of your heart rate. It is in charge of the production and regulation of your sex hormones. Okay, so it is in charge of your blood pressure. It's literally in charge, and what it's in charge of is keeping optimal levels of the biologically active thyroid hormone called T3 in your body. Okay, now there's lots of mechanisms by which this happens, but T3 is the only fat burning thing in your body. There's mechanisms and switches and things that attribute to mitochondrial function. Of course, all that contributes to fat burning, but you can never burn fat unless you have proper T3 levels, which is why people who have hypothyroidism often get really fat. It's very rare. Sometimes I have a client who doesn't have the weight issue. They have the energy issue, they have the thinking issue, their hair's falling out, their cracked skin. I mean, they maybe have all the other symptoms, but weight is not one of them. That's very, very rare. The more often than not, you get really fat. And it doesn't matter what you do. You could work out 2 hours a day, and then an hour later, you're like, why am I fatter? Why do I feel more bloated? You will just, honestly, you could eat a grape every day and you would still gain weight. Not one diet or exercise paradigm will work. And this is what drives thyroid patients crazy. It what drives all of my clients crazy, because we have this thing in our brain like, but I'm doing the work that should yield the result. But what you got to understand is, yeah, but you're doing the work and you're putting it on a body that is just completely garbage. It's zero. It's got nothing. It's got nothing. So this is what happens. So you have zero T3 or low T3 or whatever, you're hypothyroid, subpar, underactive. So what happens? So now you get your lipid panel and the doctor's like, oof, I'm worried about you. You got to lay off cholesterol. And you're like, what? That's because you don't have enough T3 to burn the fat that you're eating. Okay. So that's one of them. The other might be like, I'm depressed. Let me go to a psychiatrist. I think I'm bipolar. I think I'm depressed. And I'm not discounting those diseases. They are valid, but every single psychiatrist should be doing a full thyroid panel because it has everything to do with our brain. We have more T3 receptors in our brain than anywhere else, which is why when you're hypothyroid, a couple things happen with your brain that are really messed up. Number one, you do get depressed. You get a general malaise. That's absolutely number one. But number two, you have like really messy handwriting because the brain to hand dexterity is really off. I'm an extremely coordinated athlete. I would be tripping all over the place, knocking over my water, bumping into things, being klutzy. You know, and so it has a lot to do with the brain. And again, so people, one of the things that's really scary that happens with the brain that most people don't express, but I want to express it in case anyone out there is feeling it, because when I've expressed it before, people have been like, oh my God, that's me, which is when you start to lose cognitive abilities to some degree, which I've been there because when I'm hypothyroid, like everyone listening to me right now can tell, like I'm a fast talker. I can be very articulate. But when I'm hypothyroid, like if I were to stop my medication and like become hypothyroid again, I would start speaking like a dyslexic. I couldn't either find the words or I'd be mixing up the words. That's never happened to me in my life. I've never had a cognitive disability, but you become kind of stupid. You start to feel dumb. You read a paragraph, you can't retain it. You can't remember your own phone number. People have quit their jobs who work in accounting because they can't deal with numbers anymore. And now they're like, oh my God, I don't want to get fired. You start to feel dumb. It's a very scary thing on the inside because you're like, am I just getting older? I feel like I'm getting dumb. And that's something most people don't want to express. You know, or you might go, well, my Aunt Mary, she went in that, maybe Aunt Mary had untreated Hashimoto's or untreated thyroid. Like, let's not put yourself in like a crazy Aunt Mary. So people they don't understand that and they think it's either just aging. Well, guess what it is? Hypothyroidism is accelerated aging. It's completely accelerated aging. And if you don't fix it, the soup of hypothyroidism puts you in a disease state where you will get a disease you otherwise would not have gotten. So again, you're going to get high blood pressure. Is it high blood pressure? Is it hypothyroidism? You have a bad lipid panel. Oh, now you're getting depressed. You'll take the Prozac. It'll work for 3 months. Then it won't work. Oh, you have a hormonal problem. I have a hormonal imbalance. The doctor wants to give you progesterone. They want to give you testosterone. Guess what? Yeah, it'll work for like a little bit and then it won't work because you never got to the precursor of that thing. So I had a client who was a guy in his 20s. He started to get low testosterone, which is absolutely a thyroid thing because again, it's in charge of the production and regulation of your sex hormones. So then the doctor, what do? They do the patchwork. Oh, you don't have a thing. Let me give you the thing. Well, they gave him the testosterone. He felt better for like a few months and then he didn't because they never got to the root of the problem. The borderline malpractice there with that doctor is they should have tested the thyroid fully, corrected the thyroid because he was hypothyroid, and then the symphony comes back and his testosterone will shoot up to the top levels of what a 25-year-old should have. That's exactly what happens every time. I've had low testosterone. I've had other things happen to me when I was hypothyroidism. This is the master. So you can go to a doctor that's going to be patchworking up all your shit and all your symptoms, but they're never going to get to the root and you're going to go down the wrong road and be like 5 steps behind actually healing. So if you have I was misdiagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. I didn't have it. So someone would be like, well, how did you get diagnosed with it? How could a doctor be so dumb? It's not that the doctor was dumb. If you looked at the ultrasound, it looked like I had it. It was textbook. I would have diagnosed myself with it. Here's the problem. No one said why. Why does she have it? Why at 30 years old with perfect gynecological history is she suddenly bleeding all the time and have all of these cysts? So what they're going to do is they're going to try to patchwork that with something to control the symptoms. Had I just fixed my thyroid, been fine. So I did. I fixed my thyroid. I've never had a problem since. Ever. Perfect gynecological health in every way, normal periods, everything, never had an issue. Yet now that person who's diagnosed is like, oh no, now I'm a person with polycystic ovarian. Now that label's on them and they're walking through life like this is what I have. So when people say that, I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You probably don't. You think you do, but if you correct the underlying cause of such thing, you won't have it. And most people don't know that. Most Western doctors don't, because when you go to a Western doctor, you're looking for surgery or a pill. End of story. Now they're life-saving. We love Western doctors. I probably wouldn't be alive today. I'm sure a lot of people listening have had a situation where, my God, Western medicine is important. However, it's the third leading cause of death in our country. So if you want to find a doctor that really cares about the whole you and wants to look at every aspect of this and really actually knows it, you really want to go out and find a functional MD, a functional medicine doctor. That's really what you want. And they're not all worth their weight, but they're way better than conventional doctors who are going to spend 15 minutes with you, use a 1973 test to diagnose your hypothyroidism and put you on some BS pill that you don't need, or the wrong combination, etc. And that's why so many people are on thyroid hormones and they're still suffering, because they're still being mistreated. And the patients are being dummies by not learning about it themselves, but they think it's hopeless. So, that's a lot right there. I'll stop and see what you have to say.
No, it's really good. So you said something that's super important, and that's not just with regards to, you know, your thyroid, but in fact, like any medical condition,
Yes.
as a matter of fact, get to the precursor, right? I think that is the biggest problem with Western medicine, is like, here, take a Band-Aid and put it on this deep wound.
Well,
Right.
you just this patchwork body. You got it's like patched up and it's not in sync, because all these things then will ultimately conflict with themselves. And you also never gave your body a chance to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So in your book, you know, you gave a protocol to, you know, actually diagnose, okay, like, how do I know if I have a thyroid condition? You guys, I highly recommend that if you're like, okay, how do I find that out? Please go ahead and check it out. In fact, we are going to be giving a few giveaways by the end of this conversation. So if you stick around to the end of this conversation, who knows, maybe you're just going to get one of Elle's books. But okay, the good news is that, you know, your nutrition, right, has a huge role of improving your thyroid health. So I want to talk just a little bit with regards to the paleoprimal diet, and how should one eat if they want to heal or improve their thyroid's functioning.
I think in order for everyone to really understand, because people are very confused about diets. And I was too. Listen, I remember back in the day when I was working out so hard and overworking out to try to be like, you know, this thin actor and like try to do all this stuff. And I was doing it wrong. I didn't know. You know, it was like seemingly like a lot of suffering and sacrifice. And I was very confused. I remember calling a personal trainer like 15 years ago and being like, so we, what, like an hour before I work out, I eat a banana, and then afterwards I eat protein. Like, it seemed like, God, there's a lot of fucking rule. Like what? Like I was so confused. And most people are. I've tried every diet on the planet. Coming to this conclusion now, because my book's called The Paleo Thyroid Solution, and I am the 5th person in the world certified in ancestral paleo primal health. Very proud of it, but as a primal health coach. But here's really what people need to understand. There are 2 ways you can be in this world as a human. You can be a sugar burner, or you can be a fat burner, okay? And let me make this distinction very clear. Most of our country, most people listening, are probably sugar burners. What does that mean? That means you have to ask yourself, if you're a sugar burner, then that means as of right now, could you not eat another thing for the next 6, 8, 12, 24 hours without having a hangry meltdown, loss of energy, not be able to work out, be tired? Most people would be like, oh my God, no, I'd be dead by like, 7 hours in or whatever. That means you're a sugar burner. You are carbohydrate dependent. Our society is carbohydrate dependent. That's why every single commercial on television is for a diabetes managing or glucose managing sort of medication. It's disgusting. And our standard American diet food pyramid also promotes that, because it says you should eat 6 to 11 servings of grains a day and 2 to 4 servings of fruit. That's a high carbohydrate diet that you will lead to type 2 diabetes. The truth is that the whole thing about keeping your insulin steady and eating 5 times a day kind of thing is the wrong paradigm. And it also, let's just look at it ancestrally. Does any animal living being have food issues other than us? No, they don't. Does any animal have to eat like every 2-3 hours? They're going to pass out or get hangry? No, it's insane. Most of the times, because they're eating their native diet usually, and if they're not, that's off. So most people are carbohydrate dependent. So in the primal paleo ancestral paradigm, unless you are like Michael Phelps and you're swimming 8 freaking hours a day, or you are an NBA athlete, Literally, not just someone who works out 3 hours a day. That's not an athlete. I'm talking athlete like Michael Phelps. Unless you're that guy, you do not need more than 150 grams of carbohydrates a day ever. And most people need way less than that. So I'm 5 feet 2 inches tall. I'm a small woman. Now, it's important to be flexible. You don't have to stay to the same carb thing every day. You know, sometimes I'm really low. There's days where I have no carbs and I'm super carnivore. There's days where I have like 50 grams of carbs. Maybe the next day I have 150 because I went to town on some fruit and some other stuff. That's all good, but that's where you start. So anyone out there that's like, well, how would I even start to look at how many carbohydrates a day are you eating? Now, one bunch of cooked asparagus is 20 grams of carbs. In a day of 80 to 100, really? Okay, you got to think about that. Now, it's a healthy carb. You're not going to go wrong with that. So we're mostly carbohydrate dependent sugar burner. How do you know if you're a fat burner? Because literally right now, so I had 2 cups of coffee. I've been up for 2 hours. I could go the whole entire day, probably 3 days. I won't notice a change in energy. My muscle's not going to catabolize after my workout because my body is it's unaddicted now to glucose because I have made that switch, and it only really takes about 30 days to get into the mode where you are turning on the switches to be a fat burner. And the truth is that the science behind humans and our DNA is that our DNA actually prefers that. It can operate off of glucose and burn glucose and operate off fat, but not just one or the other solely, and not as much glucose as we think we need. So here's the person at the gym that gets nowhere because they're on the elliptical going full speed for 45 minutes. And Mark Sisson, my boss and publisher, would always say, oh, hey, hey dude, what are you training for? And the guy would be like, just love to eat. And you're like, you're going to be able to eat more, enjoy more life more when you get onto the high fat, moderate protein, low carb paradigm. Now, it could be moderate fat, moderate protein. Some people do. I work a little bit better with less. I don't do too high crazy fat, but it's really the low carb is the way to go. Not everyone needs to go keto. Not everyone needs to go carnivore. Are they life-saving? Absolutely. Are they completely valid and with so many people? Yes. I'm a fan of, I host another podcast called Kick-Ass Life Podcast. We also have a YouTube channel, Kick-Ass Life Podcast. And my coach, Tara Garrison, is a keto expert and a personal trainer. And she has a program called like Keto In and Out. And that's really what it's about. It's about being metabolically flexible so that at any given time, you're drawing where you need to from these energy sources versus being dependent on carbohydrates, because then after hour 4, now you're sleepy. Now you need something, now you need food, and then you feel better. So you go, oh, that's the way it's supposed to be. But every time you eat a carbohydrate, you're knocking on the pancreas to release insulin. Okay. And everyone needs to know that the creatures that live the longest in our world secrete the least amount of insulin. So this is why we have a lot of athletes who are becoming type 2 diabetic and insulin resistant. And they're going, I don't understand this. They look in the mirror and they look perfect. But here's the problem. You can look great, but you are not getting away with it on the back end. On the back end, you're inflamed. On the back end, your insulin's like, F you, buddy. What are you doing? You just had 130 grams of carbohydrates before your run. But you tell a runner that, and they've been trained their whole life that glucose is the thing. And so I'll give you a great example. There's a professor in South Africa named Tim Noakes, Noakes, and he wrote the book on like glucose and running, like you train pasta before the event. He wrote a book on it years ago. I mean, it's like, that's his tome. And then he had to fall on his sword many years later. He got type 2 diabetes, and he had to fall on his sword later and come out, and he got a lot of shit from all of his colleagues. And he came out and he was like, we were wrong, guys. We were completely wrong. This is absolutely not the way to do it. In fact, dangerous. So that's why we're seeing a lot of athletes, because they're still on the old paradigm of carb up for the run versus a little coconut oil in the morning or something, or nothing. They wouldn't even think about that. You talk to a runner on a standard, and it's so funny. I was just talking to someone the other day, a stranger, and they were like really into fitness, and they're like, yeah, I wish people just knew that the way to do it was like to eat 5 small meals a day. You know what? Let me just tell you something about that. That is so effed. Do you know how horrible that, I want to sit down and eat a shitload of food at one time. I don't want to eat little droppings along the, what a stressful, do you think our ancestors climbed to the top of a mountain and then passed out because they didn't have food? This is ridiculous. We are not meant to be that way. The energy is supposed to be steady all day long. And in order to keep that way, you don't tap into the pancreas 5 times. You get metabolically flexible by overturning these, getting your brain and body unaddicted to functioning off of sugar being your primarily fuel, glucose, and that sugar is in the form of grains, right? Vegetables, fruit, all that stuff, and turning it over to preferring fat as its primary source And then what happens is if you don't have food, so if we took like 2 islands and you took a bunch of sugar burners on an island, and you took a bunch of fat burners on an island, we would be totally fine because our body would kick into the plan B of using ketones and fat off of my thigh and everything to fuel my brain. We'd have no energy lapses. The sugar burners would be suffering like hell for 3 days until finally, after 3 days of no food, now they are starting to get fat adapted, is what we call it. And anyone who's very curious about this, and what all this means, one of the best books on it is The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. It's currently in its 4th edition. You can also go to Mark's Daily Apple and type in fat adapted or how to analyze the lipid panel. The Primal Blueprint podcast has had over 440 episodes. If you Google just like Primal Blueprint episode number 1 and go 1 through 15, that is Mark Sisson and Brad Kearns, the New York Times bestselling authors of the Keto Reset Diet. And Mark wrote The Primal Blueprint. It's them really talking about the fundamental principles of primal paleo. And so this stuff's for free, guys. You don't need to buy books. You can listen to podcasts, but it's important to understand it. So when people look at a primal paleo food list and they go, well, I tried it and it didn't work. It's like, yeah, but here's the thing. People don't realize that primal paleo is not just a food list. It is also about adjusting your lifestyle, and particularly your movement. So you can't still be doing glycolytic, sugar burning workouts on a regular basis, or you're going to still be on the hamster wheel. You're going to burn the sugar. Now you're going to be tired and hungry after your workout. So, anyway, I hope that makes sense. If I need to pause for a minute, or you want me to clarify something.
No, this was awesome. I know that you went deep, and we are like in so much alignment, and it's exactly like what we teach in our program. So you guys, I'm going to give you like a quick recap, if you know, because you used some pretty sophisticated words, but simply put, you guys, start with the baseline, like eat like our ancestors. I mean, you know, any food that's new to the market has added sugar in it, right? Eating healthy carbs in moderate levels is not going to kill you, right? And I think that's why so many women struggle with that, because they fear it so much and they just have no control when it comes to carbs. So then, you know, they end up eating so much of it and they overdo it. So, you know, their insulin levels are like this. So everybody goes with like high insulin levels, and we talk about it, like you want to eat meals in a way that keeps your insulin levels as stable as possible and as stable as possible in the body. You said something super powerful, and that was the people who live the longest control their insulin levels,
secrete the least amount of insulin. So the species, every species that lives the longest. And on the other coin of that too, is people are always like, oh, I want to get a fast metabolism. I wish I had a fast metabolism. Here's what's wrong with that. The creatures that have the most fastest metabolism die the soonest, like a hummingbird. It's like, zzz, and you're out. You know what I mean? Like, and you're fucking dead. So you don't want a fast metabolism. You just want a normal metabolism. And how do I know this? Because I've had a quote fast metabolism by being on too much T3, being hyperthyroid, meaning overactive. And you'd think, well, if you have a super high amount of the fat burning thyroid hormone T3, then that's good, right? No, because we are Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. Hyper is also hypermetabolic. So now you craving more, and you might be burning more, but now you're pooping more, and you are just, that's a hamster wheel you don't want to be on too. So people don't realize that as well. And they're like, oh, if T3 is the fat burner, I got fat from hypothyroidism, I'm just going to take T3 and burn this shit off. And they end up all backfiring and hurting themselves because they don't understand that there's a balance. It's a minimum effective dose when you're talking about this. Now that's thyroid hormones, but that is really for everybody. So if people could just get rid of the canola oils, I mean, look, I eat bacon, beef ribs, like that. I eat stuff. People are like, oh my God, aren't you afraid that you eat so much fat? Like, aren't you? I'm like, no, man, I eat bacon every day for the rest of my life. Never have a problem with it. But what is the problem is grains, and gluten particularly, we know for sure ignites almost every autoimmune disorder, okay? Lupus, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's. And Hashimoto's just is the autoimmune disease that affects the thyroid. I don't have Hashimoto's, so there's lots of ways to have hypothyroidism, but that's the autoimmune form. And so we know for sure that gluten affects the antibodies, meaning increases the antibodies, meaning increases inflammation, begetting more problems and more autoimmune issues. So if people just get rid of the offensive stuff, man, and stick to coconut, avocado, olive oil, butter, and get away from any kind of sunflower, canola oil, any of that bullshit. I mean, you'll have like a little seaweed snack pack. You're like, oh, seaweed, that's healthy. Look at the back of this, canola oil in there, man. These are like highly offensive oils to our body. So if you could just remove some of these, and here's the thing, go look, if you got a sweet tooth and you need to get over that, look, I get it. So it might take 21 days to 30 days of a little bit of willpower for you to switch from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. It happened to me. I remember being like, I can't think. I was having a moment. I was like, what do I eat? Like there were moments where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And but it's really only about willpower for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That is nothing in the grand scheme of someone's life in order to eliminate a food disorder, eliminate an eating disorder, eliminate an addiction. I was completely addicted for years. I thought something was wrong with me. It didn't matter how hard I worked out, how thin I was, how fat I was at any given time. I was always addicted to food, constantly thinking about it. You make deals with yourself. I don't care if you're 400 pounds and you got a food addiction or you're 100 pounds. It doesn't matter. It's mental hell. I thought about going to Overeaters Anonymous. I would think about friends and I'd be like, they don't seem to be suffering. Is everyone not talking about it? And they are just suffering? Because this seems to be the only way to do it. Because I didn't know there was another way, but I was a sugar burner. So I'd be driving from freaking from Hollywood to Malibu, and it'd be like a 40-minute drive. And I'd have like, my brain would start to get that empty and I'd start to get kind of hangry and I couldn't even handle it. Like I'd have to pull over and go to a grocery store. That's not right. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't care what you believe in, aliens, God, whatever. Do you really think that we were designed that way to suffer like that? No other species suffers like that. That makes no damn sense that we would be. That's so inefficient of a fucking design. Nobody would come up with it. They came up with another one, whether you feel it's designed or it's accidental. I don't care. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. It's just that our human bodies are designed that way. And the bottom line is this: nobody feeds a steak to a horse because they have their own set of DNA, and that would be mean. And we don't do it to a cow either because they're supposed to eat grass, and they have 4 stomachs to process cellulose. We can't eat grass all day long. So this is our DNA prescripted diet, and when you go away from it, you're gonna have problems. And that's what we see, and it's so prevalent. And there's no mystery anymore. It's just, that is ancestral science. When you look at the science, it's undeniable. When paleontologists who are looking at, samples of animals and things like, they can look at a slide and go, oh, that's a cow or whatever. Rheumatoid arthritis was not even on the archaeological record until 10,000 years ago, when we started to settle down, stop hunting, gathering, and the agricultural revolution came apart. Why is that? Grains trigger autoimmune disorders. Of course, they didn't see rheumatoid arthritis on the archaeological record, meaning when they'd have like a 20,000-year-old, skull and remains, there was none of that stuff. They started to see it in agricultural revolution. So you got to get rid of the grains, and especially the glutinous grains, but particularly like the grains, the dairy. Now, it's not to say that that's not occasional. If you can do 80-20, man, you're on a better path than most people. But if you've got something you need to heal, you got to get on it. So that's diet. Now the other part about it, so now you're a fat burner. Okay, great. So what's really optimal about that is that there are no rules then about like, oh, I lift weights and I have to eat, or I can't eat because my muscles will start eating themselves in 3 hours. The rules go out the window. You do what you want. You eat when you're hungry. There are no rules. I mostly fast until sometimes 2-3 p.m. Not because I'm like actively choosing to, just because that's how I work. And then I prefer like a 6-hour eating window. I might have a little bit of coconut oil in my coffee or something, depending. But again, I'm not waking up hungry because I'm not like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not addicted to sugar anymore. I'm not on the sugar burning train. And so I think everyone needs to work on getting off there. Your life's going to be better. This whole paradigm is also the ultimate in blood glucose management, but also the ultimate in adrenal management. So every time you're like eating 5 meals a day and you 4 hours, you have a dip, and then now you have the food and you're up and then down for another 4 hours. Oh my God, I'm getting hangry. All of that shit right there. The adrenals hate it. The adrenals hate that stuff, and it responds. So it'll start shooting out cortisol, which is why you're getting fat around the middle, which is why, which is an absolutely, a surge of cortisol can be good in certain circumstances like hormesis or doing a sprint session, you know what I mean? But not as a prolonged thing. That's why like running at like above your max heart rate for too long and being in a glycolytic situation. And so that's the other thing. So you've got to go slower. So Primal Blueprint and Paleo, it's like, hey, sprint maybe 2 times a week, do a HIIT workout, but don't do a HIIT every single day. Don't be doing glycolytic stuff every single day. So you could be like, well, I tried Paleo, it's not working. I'm like, yeah, but are you still running 40 miles a week? Like what, and at what heart rate? So if people don't understand that, we use the Maffetone scale, which is 180 minus your age. Whatever the number is, 180 minus your age, whatever that number is, you really don't want to go over that in terms of heart rate in exercise, except for maybe 1-2 days a week. If you're a professional athlete, okay, everything gets thrown out. There's different stuff for that. Of course, you would need more carbs. You're going to have to implement sweet potatoes or other things. But for most people like us, we're just working out 1 or 2 hours a day or whatever, or not at all. And here's the thing is that there's so less stress with this because you end up working out less. You don't have any more food addictions. Your workouts mean more and like last longer. It's really stressful to be a sugar burner because you were constantly feeling like you have to kind of always burn the glucose you're intaking. Man, it was stressful and uncomfortable because I thought about food all the time. And so, you know, that's the biggest success story people have when they go to paleo, primal, ancestral living is, oh my God, I don't think about food anymore. And it's like, yeah, because you have just moved from being a sugar burner to a fat burning beast. And that it has everything to do with how your brain functions. And so look, everyone's experienced this in life. Everyone's at one point had like a bowl of pasta for lunch. And that's why you want to go to sleep at 2. You know what I mean? You're up, you're down, right? And oh, now I need to wake up. So the person on the plane 3 hours in is like, I'm tired. Oh my God, I need the Pringle. They eat the Pringle and then they feel better. Well, guess what? If you're coming off of heroin and you take some heroin, you're going to feel better too. Is it good? No, not fucking good. It's horrible, right? No, but tell a heroin addict that they'll be like, no, but I'm going to feel better if I have this Pringle, which is right. And so people are just confused because they are equating their experience with that. But what they don't realize is that unbeknownst to them, they have put themselves into this state. They've put themselves into a train headed towards type 2 diabetes. I was pre-diabetic at 1.2. And by the way, you wouldn't have been able to tell. You wouldn't have been able to tell. So when people walk by you and you're like, oh man, I wish I had her body. I'd be like, you better check that bitch's blood work. You might not want her body. She may be an inflamed mess. Okay. So I might want that body over there if someone's looks a little softer because they've got, and that often is the case. So just because you're thin doesn't mean you're getting away with it on the back end. A lot of those people are severely inflamed metabolic messes as well. But we've got such metabolic dysfunction in this country. Everybody has kind of some level of it. And, you know, I mean, me not anymore, but again, and I think the goal is to go towards that because that is really the longevity anti-aging train. You want to look good forever? Great. Don't eat a bunch of sugar and be a sugar burner because it's level of glycation. It's going to break down your skin. Like I turned 47 the other day. Look at me. Are you fucking kidding me? Like I should be like an advertisement for that. I almost rarely ever say my age because it's almost embarrassing because people are like, I can't believe it. But that's the truth. You know what I mean? It's like, so I look younger than I did probably 10 years ago when I was on the wrong shit and hypothyroid and, you know, eating sugar and on a sugar turning brain. So it's an accelerated glycation, which is bad for your heart, bad for your skin. And then also too, as well, you know, the over exercising, what Mark Sisson calls chronic cardio, can be damaging. You don't have to sacrifice and suffer. You don't have to haul ass up that mountain at a really high heart rate. In fact, you're going to be burning fat if you don't. If you stay below that 180 minus your age on that hike, and that was the tough lesson I had to learn, is to slow down when I would hike and be like, this seems really like I'm not doing anything, right? Like this doesn't seem hard. So therefore we equate hard with results. And that's actually the opposite once you become a fat burner. And so that's the goal, is to become a fat burner. Then you're metabolically flexible. You're never suffering. You never have hangry moments where you're like, oh my God, I got to eat now. I'm going to murder somebody. I used to be like that all the time. Now it's kind of like, yeah, I think I'm getting there. All right, let's think about that. It's just ease. There's no, oh my God, and we all know those people. There's people that identify that. They're like, I get so cranky when and you're like, yeah, because you're a fucking sugar burner. And if you just knew that, you could change your life, but you don't. And no one's telling you. And this is most of the world.
Yeah. And you know, when you get there, like you can just feel it. Everything feels completely different.
And you don't think about food. That's really the one thing.
Right.
It'll be the day you know you're fat adapted and you've reached that is the day when it's like 3 o'clock rolls around. You're like, oh my God, I didn't even, wait, what? How did I not think about food? That's the moment where you're like tears of joy, of freedom.
Right.
Because you didn't even think about it.
Yeah. I think the problem that a lot of health conscious people have is because there is a lot of pseudo health foods. Most of them, in fact, are extremely high in sugar, right? And like people don't know the details. And that's why we always say, look at the ingredients. Like something might say, you know, could use fancy words like organic, vegan, blah, blah, blah. It's got like coconut syrup. Dude, that's sugar. You know what I mean? So like people don't realize that. I do want to ask you a question because I do want to pick at your brain because I have an analysis and I think that you will probably know the answer to that. So, we talked about grains and how they release antibodies that may hinder the functioning of the thyroid, right? So both you and I live in SoCal, an area where veganism is very prevalent, right? But
Yeah.
considering the fact that, the vegan diet, right, is very rich in grains and that sort of thing, right? Legumes as well, which both cause antibodies.
Yes.
Have you seen a direct correlation between the rise of the vegan diet and hypothyroidism?
Well, there's a rise in hypothyroidism regardless, because I think you can be a non-vegan and you're still a carbohydrate dependent sugar burner, and that's going to lead you down a wrong edge too. Let me say this about, I just interviewed John Venus. He's a famous vegan. You can look him up on YouTube, and he was a vegan for many years, and he decided to not become vegan recently. And he got a ton of shit, and I interviewed him about it. This is a very interesting interview. This is what I have to say about being a vegan. That's fine if you're going to make that choice. That is a choice. But you better know that you are making the choice against your DNA. And that requires attention to detail, like B12 and amino acids and stuff like that. Okay. Here's the other side of it. If you're a vegan, that's great. It's a choice. But don't you dare try to convince anybody that that is how humans are designed. That is bullshit. So I'm not willing, and you can give me any argument from any vegan propaganda movie and it can be dispelled in 2 seconds. Here's the other thing too. I talked to someone the other day. They're like, well, I'm just vegan during the week. I'm like, why? What? Like, what brought you that choice? Like, what is that? They're like, well, healthier for the planet. It's not healthier for the planet. That is bullshit. It absolutely is not. In fact, paleo primal ancestral community, we're all about regenerative farming, meaning let animals roam, pasture raised beef, right? Grass fed, not these cows on the side of the fried freeway in California and walking around in mud, mooing, eating grains. Because here's back to the paleo thing. Here's back to DNA prescripted diet. When you look at a package of meat, people sometimes are like, why would it say no antibiotics? Like, why is that word even on because when you feed an animal like a cow grains, that is its non-native, non-DNA prescripted diet, and they get sick, just like we do when we don't eat our native diet, just like when you're a vegan and you eat it. I've never seen a vegan last more than 17 years in my experience on Earth. It seems like that seems to be the max that I've seen anyone go without having health issues. So here's the thing. It's a choice. I understand it. That's okay. There's no judgment there. But don't be trying to tell me that's how we're designed. We are not. We're really omnivores, okay? And if anything, more on the carnivore level. That's just bullshit. And also, don't tell me it's unhealthy for the environment when it's also an extremely elitist position. And here's why. To say that everybody should be vegan, so you're going to tell that third world country who only is eating animals that they're, the shepherd or whatever in the mountains of such and such, really? You're going to tell those people, like, how elitist of you, how it's so disgusting to me to think that like, no, not everybody can be vegan. I have clients that literally can't eat vegetables at all. They have to be carnivore. And that's why there's such a huge movement with the carnivore diet. It's not that everyone should go carnivore. If you want to do an experiment, that's great. But it is really reserved for a lot of people whose autoimmune diseases have never been resolved no matter what they do. It might get better with paleo, but it's still not resolved. And then they go carnivore and it's done. I have 2 clients, one of which has Crohn's, the other has another autoimmune disease. If they eat a piece of lettuce, they are a mess. They're in pain. So don't tell me everyone can be vegan. They can't. Okay, so that is just like such a first world BS elitist thing to proselytize it. So I'm against the proselytization of it. I'm also against there's no science to prove that. So when anyone's saying that, also too, do you know how many large animals get shot protecting soy fields, soybeans? There are herbicides that are used to kill the bugs that you get your organic vegetables from as a vegan. You cannot escape the prey life. You cannot escape it. There's a great book called The Mindful Carnivore by a guy named Tovar Cerulli. And he was a vegan and he had his own vegan farm, organic farm with his wife. They were vegan for like 15, 17 years, all about we love Earth, we love everything. And what they realized is in the process of having the organic farm, something had to die. Something had to die. You had to kill something. It was the beetles, it was the bugs, it was trying to keep out the gopher, whatever it was. If they weren't going to do it, the organic farmer was going to do it. And then he got sick. And then he realized, okay, I need to do something here. But in his book, he talks about a little story about a woman wrote an article called On Being Prey. And she was a vegan and she got attacked by an alligator. Now, that's it. If we didn't have brick houses and like cement roofs and stuff, whatever, we'd be getting eaten by mountain lions too. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot extract yourself. And so a vegan might go, oh, that's accidental. But like, yeah, so what are you going to do? Try to convince a lion? And they go, well, you're a human being. You can make the choice. Not everybody can for their health. It really screws people up. Now, you could be a raw vegan and eliminate the grains and all that stuff. I have a great story. There's a woman at my gym who was trying to tell me that I was unethical for eating meat. And I was like, well, that's going to be a conversation that goes nowhere. And I got out of the conversation, but here's what's funny. She was a vegan. And then about 2 months later, I was in the sauna. And she used to swim with me, like at the gym. So I'd see her all the time. We'd swim in lanes next to each other. So it's like after we swim, I'm in the sauna and she comes running in from the pool. And she's like, I can't breathe. I can't catch my breath. I don't understand. I swim every day. I'm in shape. I can't. I'm very fit, very slim. And she's like, I can't breathe. And my first thought was, I go, when's the last time you had B12? You're a vegan, aren't you? And her eyes lit up and she was like, oh my God, you're right. I haven't taken that supplement for like a year. Oh my God. And I was like, I wrote it down. I'm like, you need to go to the store right now. You need to get this methyl B12 folate and you need to start taking it right away. Just, that's what you need. You're a vegan and that's what you need. And I said, you also need to look at your iron, you know what I mean? Just in case. So a couple of weeks go by, she comes back and she's at the gym and she's like, oh my God, thank you. Exactly. It's like, that's not inherently what we are. We are not meant for that. We don't produce hydrochloric acid when we start chewing food to break down vegetables. It's to break down meat. Okay. So our bodies are designed to eat animal foods and they're fat, period. You don't have to. You don't have to meat. You can be a pescatarian. You can get a little eggs. Even if you're vegan, if you can stomach, or like vegetarian and you're like, well, maybe like some bovine collagen. I mean, if the texture of meat disgusts you, like I get it. I have a friend who's a vegan who has to hold her nose and eat turkey medicinally after 20 years because her body started to break down. And she still hates the idea of it. It disgusts her, but she literally does it medicinally because she will be sick otherwise. So I'm not saying they all get sick, but don't be telling me it's how humans are meant to be. It's just scientifically off. Don't tell me it's bad for the planet. That's bullshit. Anyone who wants to know more about that, read Rob Wolf's book, Sacred Cow. There's also a movie coming out about it. There's that movie Game Changers by James Cameron about veganism. And one of the studies, so they made a claim that like meat eating will kill your testosterone as a guy or whatever. But guess what the study they used? They used a 3-day study where they just fed a bunch of teenagers vegan burritos for 3 days and then it trapped a contraption to their junk to say that they got more erections. I mean, this is the kind of fucked up science that is behind some of the claims. So if you watch some movie and you're convinced, you better look further to see whether it's true because most of it is not. So that's just not true. But so anyway, I know that's kind of a rant about this thing, but again, I have vegan friends like, look, if that's your choice, that's cool, but just don't be proselytizing to people that this is how it should be, or that we're a bunch of murderers and da. No, you're a murderer too. If you eat soy, if you eat tofu, you are murdering literally large animals constantly to keep those soy fields intact. Not to mention all of the tractors, all of the gas, all of the things for the environment are way worse than cow burps. Trust me. But yes, will a cow that's fed grains be sicker and have more methane burps? Yes, probably. But so anyway, so these movies and everything, you have to take at face value. It makes no sense when you look at science, and it just, and if you're going to do it, then be careful, be diligent, and ask yourself, is there a way where I can fit, like maybe you just do eggs. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm sure that covered it, but you let me know.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, bottom line is stick to the baseline, right? Like vegans hate on meat eaters because most meat eaters eat terrible meat that's like completely mistreated, like the Purdue, the Tyson, right? Like, yes, of course, that is not ethical whatsoever, right? But, for whenever any of my clients, we have quite a few who are vegans, I always ask them, but why? Right? Because like you said, evolutionarily, we're not meant to do that. And it's going to be harder to achieve any goal.
And the ethical argument is a little bit not, if you break into the ethical argument, that doesn't have a lot of legs to stand on either.
Right. So, the real bottom line is seek the truth, like pay attention to the detail and not those claims that say organic, blah, blah, blah. bullshit. Like, I truly believe that is why, like, health conscious people in our society struggle so much, because they believe the claims, they don't pay attention to the details. So you have to do your research, just like Elle did with regards to her thyroid. I mean, it's a part of who you are and where you came from. I want to talk a little bit, and transition to your other book, Confident as Fuck. But I want to begin with this question. What role does physical appearance have to do with your confidence?
Well, listen, physical appearance is, it's subjective. Do you know what I mean? Like what someone's, I might think you're pretty and someone else thinks you're ugly. I mean, like, so look in the mirror, that's not universal. If you look in the mirror and you see someone that's beautiful, that's great. I think what's more, I think confidence does have everything to do with your appearance. However, this is what's great about it. As long as you're feeling comfortable in your own skin, whatever that means, because we've all seen the 400-pound girl in a tube top that's like, I got no shame. And we're like, oh, bitch, you are the most confident, right? Like, now I would argue that she's probably not feeling comfortable in her skin at some point, right? Because that would be really tough to be in that body and feel like good about yourself. I would really, I've never heard that from any of those people that are that large or obese. But at the end of the day, like, yes, it does have a lot to do with your confidence, but it's how you feel in your body. So if you're feeling good and you're feeling fit and you're feeling alive and you've got energy, yes, that's going to help with confidence. So one of the first things you can do to get confidence is get your health in order, because it's the most pro you freaking move you can do, because you are like helping yourself. This is the meat suit that you've been given, and you are like, this is all you. So when you are loving on you in any way, particularly with food and exercise or whatever, then the healthier you be, the more your mind's working. Now you're great. You're not having the energy drops in the afternoon, not hangry and going off on someone because you're pissed, like, right? Like your mood stabilized, you're able to access the happy chemicals. Like, of course, this increases confidence. So without that, it's tough to get, but it's not to say that you can't have it, because there's women out there that are large and in charge and like, and I mean, I have a lot of respect for that. Because it's like, they don't care what other people think of them. That is kind of the ultimate in confidence.
Yeah, 100%. So, in your book, you talked about the power of vulnerability, and something that, we talk about a lot is vulnerability is sexy. So like, we tell people in our program to like get vulnerable, because that's when you're going to have the biggest breakthroughs. So, I know that with regards to your own journey, as far as becoming more confident goes, like, getting vulnerable with yourself and being real about it was like a huge, like, turning point in the trajectory of like Elle's story. So what does being vulnerable have to do with your confidence?
So I've always been pretty confident in a lot of ways. I have dips, you have teenage years, you have this happen, but for the general, like, I've been pretty confident from the beginning. However, confident people who are alphas like me, alpha females, you're an alpha female, a lot of people listening probably are too. We are often in our uncoached state. We do not weakness. For an alpha to show any type of weakness, including emotions, is just like awful to us. It's like, we don't want to appear weak. This is why I had such an issue admitting that I even had a physical disability, right? Like the ultimate, and like, you're broken, you are less than or whatever, right? I didn't, like, oh my God, that's like a permanent weakness. I don't want anyone to see that. So we are very like, people in a lot of ways, like, want to be us, they want to access this confidence. We're doers, we're producers, we're encouragers, but we have issues connecting with people, and we're not as accessible because people can't like get to us because we're not vulnerable. We're not open. We're not willing to share. I'm not saying wear your heart on your sleeve. I'm not saying there's something that you probably should take to the grave with you, that some things are better left unsaid. Like, that's all good. But that, I argue that the most confident as fuck people are the people that are vulnerable, because it is the ultimate not giving a shit what other people think of you. If you're able, and look, we're all human beings. We have emotions. This is like real life. We're real people. So to hide it, to put a facade, to always be tough, this is sort of the state of like an uncoached young alpha. And as you get older and you're more, you're doing the self-reflection and things like that, you realize that this becomes a stumbling block, because you cannot connect with other people in a way that you wish you could and that you long for, you know what I mean? And that most people do. But we're too busy sort of being this, like, I have to always appear tough. And that really, again, I think it's just like that's a sense of confidence, because the ability to be emotional and open or vulnerable about a weakness or something that's been a challenge to you is the ultimate in confidence, because you don't give a shit.
I love it.
About it. Yeah. So I had to get really vulnerable, and it really was tied into my physical disability. I would hide it from people. I wouldn't tell people I dated I had it, because you can't see it. And I live a normal life, and I can play a game of ping pong with you. And so no one can see it. So it's almost even worse when you have something like that, because not only is the world not empathetic, like when you're in a wheelchair and missing an arm, people are like, oh my God, I feel so bad for that person. Right. But when you have something that no one can see, they either question it, they think you're lying about it, or like, there's all these things wrapped up in it. And again, like if I don't have to tell people because they can't see it, then why would I show that vulnerable side of me, this part of me? The problem with that is that then I kept coming across people that were emotionally unavailable. And that's exactly what happens. What do you expect I was going to attract? If I'm a robot, I'm going to get a robot. You know what I mean? And so that was the biggest work I had to do in the past several years. And I carried the shame about my disability for 20 years. And I would have friends try to keep up the lie. Like if I'd had a boyfriend, I'd be like, look, if you're going to meet him, don't mention my disability. I didn't tell them yet. Like, and they would be like, Elle, you just have to, like, at some point, you got to be open with people and just like, so it's so funny now, because when you look back now, I have no shame about talking about it. I used to not even be able to mention anything I've mentioned about it without bawling, hysterically crying. Couldn't even get the words out. It's amazing to me that I'm even talking about it, like just freely, like in life now, because it crippled me for 20 years. So at the end of the day, shame disables confidence. And so everyone needs to do what they need to do to uncover the shame. Now, I don't care if you've got like unsightly moles on your back and you're ashamed about that, or if you're ashamed because you were a drunk driver 10 years ago and killed somebody and you're still carrying shame. It doesn't matter if it was your fault. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you get flat with it. I don't care if you have to go to a therapist or privately, or maybe you do need to tell, because when you tell someone, when you finally come out with it and they recognize it, then that's when it can be resolved. And again, you don't have to write a chapter in a book about it or do a Facebook Live like I do with it. You don't have to do a speech on it. But I'll say a couple things about it. I wrote a speech that I gave at Paleo FX last year called The Shame of Disability and the Disability of Shame, because the shame was more disabling than the fucking disability itself, guys. It really, really was. And I could kick myself, know what it could have, should have, but man, if I could go back 20 years, that'd be one of the first things I'd be dealing with, would be owning this thing that happened to me and just owning it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I owned it that I could get over it and be okay with it and self-soothe about it. I was afraid people would reject me. I was afraid people would consider me like a financial liability because I had something. I was just, again, afraid and ashamed that it's just like this appearance of weakness. Do you know what I'm saying? Now, the other side of it too is this, and I write this in my book. I am not happy and successful despite my disability. I am happy and successful because of it. And again, that's about your challenge becoming, right, your test, your testimony, etc. So it's really been a gift. And that's the ultimate message, is that gifts come wrapped in shit. The biggest gifts I've ever received were shit. Hypothyroidism led to connecting with my dream of being a writer, and like that connected. And then also my dream came true with performing because of my voice, because of the lack of my arms. So two of the worst things that ever happened to me in my life that seemed like the worst curse, oh my God, who would do this to me, were the best things that ever happened to me, and I'd never take them back. And you often talk to someone who's like said breast cancer or something. They're like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And people are like, I don't get that. I'm like, oh, I get it. You see who your friends are. You see what your priorities are. It changes you. It puts you into a level of gratitude, especially once you've gotten over it. I sometimes still to this day have moments of tearing up out of gratitude that I am not sick with hypothyroidism anymore. I still have moments where I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Like, oh my God, thank God I solved it. Because, I talk to people all over the world that are crying to me about it. And I sometimes get off calls and I'm crying because I remember the pain. I remember the lack of hope. I remember feeling like, there was a time, I've never been suicidal per se, but there was a time before I corrected my thyroid problem and I was suffering for so long and I was trying to figure it out. And I remember thinking to myself, if I don't find a solution at some point soon, I'm going to have to start thinking about killing myself. That is not a thought I've ever had since. I don't want anyone to have that thought, but being in a hypothyroid body so severely was such an awful state of being. All I couldn't wait to do was just to go to bed every night so the day could end and I could not be awake to feel it. It's a horrible, horrible place to be. I'm letting everyone know right now, it's 100% fixable. Don't ever listen to a doctor telling you you're going to struggle with X because you're hypothyroid. That's just bullshit. And so the two things in life that were horrible to me were gifts wrapped in shit. Give it a minute, people. Give it a minute. I didn't even realize what a gift my disability was a gift in a lot of ways. But the biggest gift was being able to talk about it and inspire people. And that's the chapter in my book called Shame Disables Confidence. And this story is much longer and more intricate about how I got disabled, you know, how it led to me, my voice and my career, and how it led to Mark Sisson and me podcasting and all that kind of stuff. But I never thought I'd ever be talking about it. I never thought it'd be a positive thing. Never. I'd be like, no, this is awful. And now I'm just like, this is one of the biggest gifts that keeps on giving. And same with hypothyroidism. Had I not been hit with that, I'd never been truly sick in my life. So I almost feel that I kind of feel like it's a better position to have suffered in that way at some point with something chronic, because once you're out of it, your level of gratitude and appreciation for your health is more than any normal healthy person who's never been sick has. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because they just don't know, right? And so when you've been there, like, you know, and so when you're out of it, you're like, woo, dodge a bullet. Oh my God, life is great. Like there's like, it's like a different baseline of happiness and gratitude, you know, for the overcoming of the thing. So yeah, I mean, this is, you know, I could go on all day about it. Maybe you want to interject, but gifts come wrapped in shit. Give it a minute. You don't know what this is going to bring you. I never thought I'd write a book where I'd even talk about this. I never thought when I was first hypothyroid that 10 years later, I'd write a book that would help people all over the world and be a best-selling. But like, I never thought that. I was compelled to write both things. And I think that if anyone's out there and they want to be a writer, the question to ask yourself, like, are you compelled to? Because if you're not, then you're not meant to be a writer. I was compelled. Like I had to talk about this. And confidence is something that, again, like I've been pep talking people for years. But if you're confident out there and you don't think you need my book, I say, check yourself, because I talk about these pitfalls of highly confident people, and it's a good review. And basically it just takes you through scraping the barnacles off of your own life, real life examples of how confidence affects us, from parental garbage, stories we had from a kid, things that could be affecting you in the future, shame, getting rid of downers, getting rid of toxic people, getting your religion in order. You know, if you're a religious person, get your faith in order. God loves you. You cannot not be confident and be a person of faith. It's a complete, and also too, I want to say that, so there's different levels of confidence. You can do a 180. Like I know someone who was so debilitatingly shy, they could not even talk to like a Starbucks barista. In that case, yeah, you got to hire a social coach who's going to take you out and actually help you talk to people. Most people aren't at ground zero. They're just somewhere where they kind of just want more of that thing. And you do, because you're trusted more. Because confident people are the most authentic. They tell it like it is. They see challenges as just that, not negative things. You know, it's a challenge to overcome. They're comfortable with failures and mistakes. Do you know what I mean? They speak with authority. They're dependable, reliable, trustworthy, on time. They foster and encourage the success of others. A confident person is not a confident bravado, bragging, or your bitch boss that's just some high alpha chick. No, that's not confidence either. So, you know, I think people are confused about that word. They're confused about what it means. Some people who aren't as talky get a little offended because they're like, well, I'm not the outgoing. You don't have to be. Some of the most confident people are the quietest people in the room. My best friend is that person. My best friend, one of them, Michael, he's the guy who's standing in the corner of the room at the party and everyone's probably like, oh, that poor guy over there. No, not poor guy. He's totally comfortable in his own fucking skin. He's observing everyone. He's having a, you should enter every room, you know? Confidence is not fixed either. Okay. So this is not an anchored quality within you. So your levels of confidence are really the sum of the thoughts you think and the actions you take. Okay. So it's not reflective of your actual capacity to succeed at something. It's really more reflective of your belief in your ability to prevail in life in general or in an endeavor. And so, you know, since you can change your thoughts, right? And since you can and change your actions, confidence and self-esteem and self-love is within everybody's power. And one of these quotes I saw about shyness really hit me, and I put it in my book, and I want to make sure I get it right here. It's by a guy named Andre Dubus, and he wrote that shyness has a strange element of narcissism to it, because it's this belief that how we look or how we perform is truly important to other people. That shit's real. That's good. That's good stuff right there. There's something to that. So you can get on stage and talk to 50,000 people and get off that stage and not be able to have a conversation with your loved one or your boss or your neighbor. That's not confidence either. That's performance confidence. That's just performance confidence. Okay. Like almost anybody can attain that. It might take some, speech classes and improv class, training in public speaking. But at the end of the day, that's just performance confidence. I can't tell you how many people I've met who appear to be confident and are messes on the inside with really low self-esteem. You can also have high self-esteem and maybe not confidence in area. Like, for example, I heard a PhD who's really smart talk about how she's like, I really know my stuff. It's just I have a problem with confidence. So she's got like a certain level of confidence about her knowledge in a thing, but she's not confident about talking about it or putting out in the world. Ain't no one gonna buy your shit or buy your painting or take your service or want to be with you if you can't go out and sell it. No one's gonna come to your house and be like, oh, I heard an artist lives here. Do you have any paintings I can buy? Like you've got to have the ability to self-promote no matter what it is. Sure. And so people who've learned this thing like, oh, be humble. Nah, that's kind of fake. Don't be braggy. Braggy's insecurity. We all know those people that are bragging. I mean, that's not confidence either, right? That's bullshit. So confident as fuck is about inside and out. Okay. And it's about scraping the barnacles off to get there, because I was confident in all of the arenas in my life, except for the romantic one, because I was crippled by the shame because I couldn't tell anyone about my disability. So I thought I was shuffling this shit over the rug over here. And I was like, no, it's fine. And it will affect everything in your life. That piece will brew up to then where it becomes like, oh my God. Right. And so that's kind of what I'm arguing for here. You can't be hiding and shuffling over here. You want to be confident in all areas of your life. I would say that having some performance confidence or level of outward confidence is absolutely not necessary, but important for people. But you don't have to be one of these outgoing speaker talkers like you or I. That is not necessarily confident either. You know what I mean? I'm confident, but that's not necessarily, again, it could be a performance thing. So all that matters is that you walk into every room like you own that place, like you're good. You don't need to prove yourself to anybody. You accept yourself. I want everyone to feel comfortable in their skin, their mind, who they are in this world, confident about themselves, their integrity. Confident people are the most authentic because they tell that shit like it is. And people really respect that. It's something that is my most given compliment to me. People will be like, they'll ask me my opinion on something and I'll tell them, or I'll offer an opinion and they'll be like, you know what? That means a lot coming from you because I know you don't blow smoke. Yeah. So I'm really trusted that way. People know I am not going to bullshit them. They know this.
Right.
And
that's why we love you.
People who are less confident often can be passive aggressive or people pleasers who are not confident. That's just like this like false BS that you're putting out there, and it often backfires. That's why confident people win. That's why they're the most hireable. That's why they're most desirable. I mean, listen, even on a schoolyard, you choose the people, even if they're not truly confident, because at young ages, often confidence is misused and uses domination and bullies and shit like that. You don't choose all the weak ass, less confident people to be on your team of kickball. You choose all the people that are like, oh, I'm going to dominate, like, the confident people, even if someone falls, you choose those people because you know that wins. And confidence gives you an evolutionary edge. Back to paleo primal. You think people were sitting around in victim mode being like, meh, meh. No, man, I was like, get up and move. We got to move camp. This motherfucking tribe over here just came in here, infiltrated, took our bitches to a cave, dragged them by their hair. Let's get out. They don't dwell on it and sit around and be like, oh my God, this happened to us. It's like you move forward, so it gives you an evolutionary edge, but also and listen, we all need a tribe. We all need to be valued by at least one person, even if it's the guy at the 7-Eleven and you're a loner and like that's the only contact you have. We all need to feel valued. That's true. It doesn't have to be by a ton of people, but it's got to be at least one, so that is part of it. We want to feel valued. That's where self-esteem comes from. You can have confidence because you're just a great friend. And this is not about being a CEO or a podcaster or a public speaker, because you're going to need confidence if you're a stay-at-home mom. There's some damn kid's mother who's a biatch who you're going to have to deal with at some point. Are you going to have the confidence enough to speak up to her or at the PTA meeting or to the principal or whoever it is. No, you got to protect your child, right? So you need confidence in every area of your life, from the bedroom to the boardroom. You're not going to get what you want unless you have it. Most people want more of it. If you already have it, I would say my book would help you refine it and be good reminders.
I love it. Man, I feel like I can talk to you for hours. You guys, isn't she amazing? I know. So, okay, I want to do a gift giveaway. Speaking of gifts, this one is not going to come in the form of shit, though. It's going to come in the form of mail. Because I mean, hello 21st century, but we're going to be giving away Elle's book, Confident as Fuck, to one of you guys. So Elle, you're going to help us pick a winner. So choose a number between 2 and 24.
7.
Emily Wolf. That's so
All
fun.
right, Emily. Great last name.
Emily
Very,
asked,
very, very confident, primal last name, Wolf.
I know, Wolf. It's
Badass.
amazing. The rest of you guys, you can get Elle's book on Amazon and also on your website, right?
Well, there's a link to Amazon through my website, but yeah, Amazon.com, you can get both books. Paleothyroid Solution, I mean, no one's in bookstores right now, but yeah, Barnes & Nobles and everywhere, but pretty much just Amazon.com for both. They're both in print and Kindle. Paleothyroid Solution and Confident as Fuck. It's got an asterisk on the C, but if you just type in the full word, it'll come up, or type my name. And then, yeah, you can go to lruss.com to find out more information about me. If you want to look at more interviews about thyroid, where I go like more in depth from, beginning to end in it, there's a select group of, interviews under the press tab. I've done over 100, like literally you can get so much free information on confidence and thyroid, but because I'm just doing the confidence in the past few months, there's not as many interviews out there. But if you just Google me, you can find a lot of information for free. Listen, that's what I'm about. I spent $15,000 I didn't have 15 years ago trying to fix this. That's why I made the free thyroid guide. That's why I do so many interviews, because I want people to learn and relearn and get it for free, because you're going to have to spend all this money on this other bullshit like doctors and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, happy to help anyone get from A to Z quicker than I did. That's the whole purpose. And same with confidence too. Same with confidence, because you're never, honestly, you will not achieve your dreams in life if you don't have it.
So true.
We'll post the links to both of our books and Amazon on our Facebook group page too.
Yeah.
And we'll put them at the bottom of the YouTube one if you're watching this on YouTube.
And if you guys, like some of the stuff I'm talking about with confidence, again, I co-host a show with Tara Garrison. We're both mindset and empowerment coaches, and it's called Kick-Ass Life Podcast, just youtube.com/Kick-Ass Life Podcast. And every week we talk about something like the power of your subconscious mind, or, overcoming this, or, we're talking about these things that are helping you do the self-evaluation to improve and move forward in whatever arena that is. So it's a new podcast. There's only 22 episodes out at this point, but that's more of that talk. And then the Primal Blueprint podcast is me interviewing people every week on health and or mind. So mind, body, but that's more of an interview style format versus Tara and I on Kick-Ass Life, just, talking about our own experiences and just pure on full coaching. Yeah.
I love it. Amazing. I know we went a little bit over, so I want you to know that I do appreciate your time and your generosity. You guys, give us a thumbs up if you learn at least one thing, and if you gain value from Elle today. You keep it so real, and we love you so much for that. Thank you for all those golden nuggets and gifts that were definitely not in the form of shit. But remember, you guys, stay awesome. Whatever is between your ears and the actions that you take will dictate your destiny, not your past. And, Elle's the true testimony for that, because your test does become your testimony. So, Elle, have yourself an amazing weekend. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for the rest of y'all, stay awesome. Thank you for joining us today as well. We will see you guys on Monday. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elle.